Hi, everybody. Welcome to this podcast, Who's in My Pew. This is a podcast made by the Church of St. Pius X, Lombard, New York. Very welcome community here. Today, we're talking about the experience of being Catholic in college. I know a lot of people asked me this before, especially the young people here at St. Pius and also people at Siena College, how difficult it is. And we're going to talk about the different challenges, experiences, and different ways to live our Catholicity in different environments. Have two very special guests in our podcast today. And Kirsty, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kirsty. I'm the youth and young adult minister here at St. Pius. I started in August, and I just love it here so much. It's been a great experience so far, and I'm really excited to share my experiences as a young adult here.
Yeah, very nice. We're so lucky to have you, and you are doing wonderful in our community. What about you?
Hi, my name's Emily Lombard. I've been a parishioner of St. Pius for about 4 years. Prior to St. Pius, I graduated from Siena College, and I was there for 4 years. And before that, I grew up in upstate New York near Plattsburgh in a small town named Peru. So it's been fun kind of being a transplant in the capital region the last few years.
Very, very, very nice. The reason why we are recording this podcast is because a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a Q&A, right, for the youth ministry here. It was a lot of open questions to Father Daniel, and we ended talking about how difficult it is to be Catholic today. It's a real challenge, unfortunately. But let's talk about your childhood. How was your faith when you were a child?
I grew up Catholic. Both my parents were Catholic. I was lucky enough. My church growing up was a great community for me. I was very close to my priest. I definitely had difficulty with other kids because I went to a very, very large public school. So I was very used to being the only Catholic kid in the room, which was hard. But the church was definitely a home for me. And I always knew growing up that there was a place for me there. And that was a really big part of my childhood.
Very difficult. I was the same. I was a Catholic when I was a child. In elementary school, I was the only Catholic of my class, but I never had problems because I wasn't that faithful. Unfortunately, I wasn't that connected with my community church. What about you, Emily?
As I say, I also grew up Catholic. My family, at least my extended family, we have a lot of religious family, being like French Canadian heritage. Catholic faith is kind of really big in that heritage. And so like my grandmother had 13 siblings, and of the 13, I think we had 5 or 6 religious members.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then like my own experiences, like I would always go to mass every week, and I also went to a public high school, so I didn't get that experience of like a Catholic education other than like Sunday school. But then once I transitioned to Siena, I got a little bit more of a taste for it.
Okay. Any Catholic memories from your childhood?
I was going to say, I actually play the flute. And so for about 3 or 4 years, I would play the flute in our choir at our church at St. Augustine's in Peru.
St. Augustine.
And then I also did Catholic Heart Work Camp when I was a sophomore in high school. And both those things were pretty, I think, really good starting points for me growing as an adult going into it.
Chrissy, any Catholic memories?
Yeah, I was just talking actually to my dad about this the other day. My dad got confirmed the same year I did, and I was his sponsor. So this year when confirmation rolled around, I just remember it, and it was so special.
Do you remember when he asked you to be the sponsor? Do you
I didn't want to do it at first. I was a little nervous because I didn't know what to expect. But yeah, it was very, very special.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like, it was like the first time that my dad calls me father. I was like, what? But it's like kind of the same. Like, could you be my sponsor? Okay, as a teenager, any memories about that time as a Catholic kid?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest years as being a Catholic. Like I said, I didn't have many Catholic friends growing up. So it was difficult. I was trying to figure out my faith. And it was a little rocky at times because I didn't have anybody to share it with. I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, but it was a good time too. My church was awesome. I didn't really have a youth group, but I was very, very close to my priest, and I just remember being so inquisitive about the Catholic faith, and I was able to ask him questions, which was great. And that was definitely more of an educational time for me, kind of building up the things about the faith that I didn't know, learning about all the different facts and stuff. But yeah, it was very difficult in terms of community because I was all alone, it felt like.
Yeah, of course. What about you, Emily?
I would say similar vibes to that. My area is a very small area, and so even now, like, there's not a whole bunch of Catholic kids. There's only one Catholic school in the entire, like, region up in Plattsburgh. And so it was definitely tough. I think for me, I was just trying to learn my own self, like, what I was believing in my values, and, like, it was modeled by my parents, but it really took until college for me to kind of, like, pick it and choose and, like, yeah, like, this is what I want my life to be around.
As a teenagers, we always have, like, a question to God that, we feel like, oh, he never answered, or things like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we always have this. Do you remember that question in your own teenager time? Like, that question that you ask God constantly, trying to understand him? No.
I think for me, like, my grandfather ended up passing away of cancer when I was a junior in high school. And it was more so like, why did this happen? Like, it was unexpected too. And so it was like, oh, like why God? And it's like, looking back, it's like, okay, like, obviously I was always rooted that, like, I believed in God, but it's just kind of that doubt of that, like, question in your heart. You're like, why do bad things happen sometimes to good people? And it's just a hard thing to sit with, especially at that age.
I have pretty much the same question, because one of my close friends passed when I was like 15, and that was so painful. I was like, why him? We have older people in the world. They are no good. Why my friend? Why my friend? What about you, Crazy?
I think as a teen, the most difficult thing I was always questioning was my vocation. I remember talking about it during religious ed, and everybody kind of knowing exactly what they wanted to do. Kind of their path was very clear for them. And I remember just asking God all the time, like, what am I meant to do? So that was definitely the most questioning thing for me. And even in college, it was very interesting just to see where God led me, because it's not where I thought I would be. And just listening to his voice and trying to discern that in high school was interesting.
Yeah, very, very, very nice. Very, very good. Question. You're both from Siena, right? Yeah. People of Siena, we love you.
Go Saints.
How'd you make the decision? This is not to advertise people to go to Siena, but it's the Catholic school close by St. Pius. How'd you make that decision to go there? What leads you to Siena?
I feel like Siena kind of chose me. It was actually my last choice of college at the time. I remember touring. I didn't think much of it. There was a few other schools that I really wanted to go to. And then little by little, just different things about it really called to me. Definitely the Catholic community. I remember growing up, I always said I wanted to be a saint, and I felt like that was just a funny coincidence that they were the saints. I studied history. The history program was very good there. So just little things along the way kind of made me choose it.
Okay. I will ask you more about that after Emily. Emily,
So
why Siena?
For me, Siena wasn't my top choice. St. Bonaventure University was the sister school to Siena, and my grandfather had went to St. Bonaventure, so I always was around that Franciscan spirit. Like, we both were very big basketball fans, and so when March Madness would come on, we'd always cheer for Siena or St. Bonaventure whenever they were in the tournament. And they have this game that's the crossover game. Every year they'll bounce either here in Albany or in Olean, and my grandfather would always come down from Plattsburgh and watch Bonaventure and cheer for them. And so that was kind of my first experience with Siena. And then later on, while I was, like, going through high school trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, like, my Catholic faith is something that's important to me. I may not understand everything in that moment, but I wanted a smaller school. I have some family that are local to this area in Latham. And so it kind of worked out that I had family close. This was my closest college to home. My other choices were either like 5 or 7 hours from home. And I love my home. And so it's nice to be close enough where I can just hop on 87 and head home. Whereas, like, it would be a trip to go out to Olean to go back up to Peru.
Okay. That was nice. This is just because I'm not from here. In outside the U.S., we made the decision to go to the university. It's it's different the way how you made the decision, but that touring part that you go and visit the schools, how that works? You finish the high school and you apply, or how that works?
So I began touring as a junior in high school.
Okay.
So I was still very young. I hadn't thought about college much yet. So it was a huge eye-opening experience. Like, oh, this is what college is like.
You sent an email to the school, or how that works?
They have, I think, like weekends, like welcome weekends, where they would tour, and you just get a bunch of kids together from different high schools, and they'd show you around, tell you about the programs. And I just remember the welcome director was so nice, and just like so into Siena that he really got me into it. It was a nice, bright, sunny day. The campus was beautiful, so that definitely helped. And they were very good at what they do. They definitely told us everything we needed to know. So that was my first positive experience with Siena. Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Emily?
I was about to say,
the touring power. How many schools did you visit before?
So I ended up visiting 4 schools. So relative to a lot of people, that's actually not a lot of schools. Some kids will go on like dozens of tours, but I just kind of knew, I was like, okay, like I'll apply, and then if I get in, then I can figure out, okay, I'll go check out those schools. But Siena, I actually had a family friend that went to, and her name was Alyssa, and Alyssa was an RA on campus, and she's like, do you want to come down? And there was one of the like welcome weekends, and I'm like, sure, like you can stay in my dorm. And I actually became an RA later on in college. And ironically enough, I had that same room my junior year that I stayed in that first time I ever went to Siena. And I was a business major at Siena. I studied finance and economics, and so
money.
Yeah. As I would say, they have a very good business school, and so that was another draw of why I looked at Siena. But also the faith component was cool, like seeing the friars walking around.
Yeah, I love them. Every time I go there, I see them like walking by or in a golf cart, like going around the campus and asking questions and things like that. Okay, you moved to the campus. You made the decision to go to Siena. Now, when you move, how was that? A lot of Catholics, now Catholics. How it works for you when you move to the campus. And
for me, I did so much preparation beforehand. I picked my roommate. She just seemed nice. I don't think she was Catholic particularly, but we had the same values. Okay. So I thought I had everything set up, and then maybe like a month before we moved in, they go, oh, you're actually going to have 2 roommates. So I had a forced triple, what they call it. So they squeezed 3 people into a room for 2. And so we had an extra girl. I was so worried. And it ended up being one of my best friends now, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
We're going to shout her out.
Yeah, we will. So she was my roommate as well. She was Catholic. Okay. And she opened up, a whole community for me. Because I like I said, I didn't have any Catholic friends, and she was one of the first
ones. How you found that she was Catholic? She told you? Or?
She did. She told me. It was a very big part of her life. And so that was my move-in experience. And then we kind of get together with all the girls in our hallway, and we have a week where we do all these different like icebreaker games, getting to know you things. So yeah, that's how I met almost everybody that I knew that first year of college.
Cool. What are you, Emily?
For me, I would always attend Mass at Siena. Ironically enough, the dorm that I lived in is named Heinz Hall, and that's connected to what their chapel is at Siena. So all I would have to do is just roll out of my little like dorm, walk down 2 flights of stairs from the 4th floor to the 2nd floor, and the church is right there, which is awesome. And so in the earlier stages of my Siena, like I wasn't super involved in like campus ministry, but I had some really good models. Like there was an RA that's now one of my really good friends that modeled it, and like her and now her husband are both like, they would do service trips. She's like, oh, like she would invite me to these things. I'm like, oh, like maybe not. But later on, our friend Katie, she was also an RA. I became good friends with her through that realm. And then like she would see me going to Mass, and she was like, oh, like, would you like to come to campus ministry? Like we do like fun events, and like sometimes we do retreats. And at that point, I was a junior when like I became good friends with her. I'm like, you know what? Why not? Like at that point, I felt like I had my grasp pretty well at Siena, and I'm like, Katie's such a great person that I'm like, if she enjoys it, then it's got to be good. So she was the one that like really like challenged me to kind of not like step up and get more involved. And so for that, I'm really grateful for her.
Do you have any memories of those first events that you help in the campus as a campus ministry assistant or, being involved?
I was going to say with like campus ministry, I remember that we went on a retreat to Joshua House. I think it's up in Altamont, if I remember right.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
Beautiful house. Have you been there?
No.
We'll have to plan to do something with the youth. Trip there.
It's a beautiful place. Yeah. And so I remember that was like the first time like I'd seen these retreats advertised and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. 'Cause usually they have a big freshman retreat, but I felt like now being a junior, I'm like, wow, like I'm behind the ball. Like, how can I like get involved? And then it's like, oh no, this one's for like all class years. And so it was really neat getting to see like people that they had alumni. And another one of my good friends who is a parishioner here at St. Pius, her name's Maeve. She was one of the alumni speaker. And it's like Kirsty was saying, it's interesting to see the breadcrumbs now after the time has gone on. And it's like I got to meet Maeve then, and now we're great friends. And it's awesome to see like, oh, like if I hadn't gone to that retreat, like I wouldn't have met this person and like the line of it. And it's pretty neat. But I think that retreat was really a first step of me like taking in my own hands, like, oh, like this is important to me. I enjoy this. Another one was my first time going to adoration at Siena. And as you see me here usually every Tuesday. I enjoy adoration a lot.
I like it. Quiet moment. You, the Lord there. Every Tuesday, 1:30 to 6 p.m. Crazy. What about you? Any remarkable retreat for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't part of campus ministry. Okay. I didn't get involved in that. I wish I did now. But my faith journey was a lot different in college, I think. I was always kind of nervous to get involved because it seemed like everybody was leaps and bounds ahead of me in terms of their faith, which being a young adult minister now, like it's so obvious that wasn't true. Everybody's on their own journey in their different levels. But so I went to Mass every Sunday at Siena. One of the best memories I have was the pizza every night. I think it was a late night Mass in the dorm rooms, which is crazy to me. We just kind of all like go down in our PJs in one of the common areas, have Mass and have pizza afterwards. Cool. And that was positive for me. I just feel like it kind of let my guard down a little bit, kind of see the real people behind church where it wasn't this big scary thing anymore. It was just my friends and people I went to school with. And we were all kind of in the same boat. So that was awesome.
Yeah. We always have these cycles in our life. And of course, when you're a teenager, you have all these questions to God that you remember, and then you finally find an answer. In the college, do you have like any huge challenge in your own faith as a Catholic? Like something that you say, like, in my personal case, it was like the Eucharist, like believing in the real presence of Jesus Christ that played a huge portion of my questions, that was the question for me my entire beginning of college. But any questions for you? Any doubts about?
I think for me, and I took a lot of classes about this, I just wondered why Catholicism when there's so many other forms of Christianity. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot about like the Protestant Reformation and all those different things.
What do you find interesting on that?
Just how many beliefs there are about the same thing. I mean, just this past weekend, I went to a Lutheran wedding, and my husband, Andrew, was asking us about communion, how different people believe different things. And I guess in college, my question was, I mean, I was born Catholic, but why? Why is this the right answer? And that definitely led me to delve in deeper to all those things.
And why? Why are you still Catholic?
Why?
That's a question, yes.
I'm Catholic because I believe it. I know I grew up Catholic, but just everything that I learned about, I was reaffirmed. Mm-hmm. So for me, 100% now, I feel like this is just the truth. And yeah.
Makes sense. Everything in the Catholic Church makes sense. Everything is very organized. I can feel that when I'm doing baptisms, because that's a very important moment and unique and the very first step. And you see like all the logic of the sacrament, the anointing, the white vestment and things like that. And say, being Catholic is beautiful. What about you, Emily? Any questions during your college time?
I think there were more answers than questions, at least like during maybe hard periods of my time at Siena. I think my faith was always something that would ground me. Maybe I didn't understand it. And like at that time, I was not as connected, but then I was figuring out, I'm like, oh, like this brings me a little sliver of happiness. And maybe during this anxious period with like classes or with friends and relationships and all of that, like this 1 hour every week, like it feels peaceful. And at that time I was like, whoa, like that sat really well. And then it's like, okay, like if I engage more with it, will I get more of this peace? And so getting connected in a community was really important for me, and having really great friendships that can bring people together. Like without our friend Katie, like I wouldn't have met Kirsty, who's one of my best friends now. And I can remember when Kirsty was interviewing for her job here at St. Pius. I had been a parishioner
I remember that too.
And she was like, yeah, like there's an opening at St. Pius. And at that time I've gone here for a couple of years. I'm like, you should apply. Like, I think you would like it. And it's really important, I think, to have that connection and fellowship with people that have that similar background, but also are different from you. Like Kirsty and I are different in different ways. Like I'm a big extrovert. Kirsty's a little more reserved, but yeah.
And do you met before at Siena years ago, or
No, we didn't know each other at Siena, which is crazy.
Yeah,
we only really met about a year ago.
We were
Through our friend Katie.
just talking about it. We're trying to figure out.
Tell me about Katie.
Hey, yeah,
Katie.
yep.
Good, close friend.
Oh, I'm gonna be her godmother of her second son in about 3 months, I think. So very good friend. And then Kirsty, you were in her wedding, right?
No.
Oh, no. I was going to say, that's where I met you, was her wedding.
Yeah.
Because that was before.
Right.
But we met after the fact.
Yeah.
But Katie actually is a youth minister at OLV in Troy.
Okay.
So her faith is very important to her. And then as well as her husband, Matt. And so it's really neat to have, at least in my perspective, like I'm a single person right now in this stage. And I have friends that are having families, and I have Kirsty and Andrew who are married. And it's nice to see, and then I have single friends, and it's awesome. And so that's something that's been cool.
Yeah. Do you remember any challenge as a Catholic in the college because of your Catholic faith? Any hard moment, difficult? I don't know.
Honestly, I think that's the point where it got easier for me, because I was so firm in who I was at that point in my Catholic faith that I think the people around me didn't matter as much, because I was more focused on my relationship with God, and everything kind of fell into place after that. I was ready. Teenage years were much more difficult.
Yeah, that's good. What about you?
I think for me, like college, coming somewhere new, there's a lot more people. There are a lot more temptations that are going on. The alcohol is around. Maybe you weren't around that before. Or just prioritizing it in the sense of like, oh, like I have to actively choose to do this. It's not mom and dad are taking me to mass now. It's if I want to go, I'm the one choosing to go. And so for me, I think the challenge was figuring out, like, is this something that is important to me, or is this something that just my parents say is important to me? And that identity of trying to figure out, like, is it important? And that struggle. And in college, like, there's a lot of different things going on with classes and people, and that can get in the way at times. And if you don't take the time to really focus in on what are your values, you can easily get lost and distracted and overwhelmed and anxious. And I felt all those things in certain periods of my time in college. And then there are other periods where it's I got tapped in more with my faith and connected with good community, and it just clicked. And it's like, oh, like when I'm rooted and anchored, for the word, in my faith, it really makes the difference.
How did your Catholic faith help you through dealing with all those difficult moments during the college, stress, overwhelm, all those. How your Catholic faith helps you with that?
I think for me, like for a long time, I struggled with the aspect of like just being enough. Like I always felt like I had to do everything for everybody or be something for everybody. And then it took a while for me to realize like, no, like I'm enough in God's eyes. Like, and so that kind of reiterated like, oh, like I don't have to be anybody other than who God designed me to be. Like, and that was something that really helped me. And then just the aspect of mass, just being present and sitting there, and that it's just peaceful to me. And that helped me during anxious periods, as well as Catholic friends that would come into my life that would speak into me and help me out. And maybe they weren't like quoting scripture or things like that. It's just them showing up and being present. But what they're rooted in led to their actions that led to helping me, which is nice.
What about you, Chrissy? How that works? How did Catholic faith help you in the middle of challenges?
Yeah, I agree with Emily. I feel like it just gave me a sense of peace. I mean, obviously things went wrong in college. Not everything was easy, but
what was the most difficult thing for you?
For me, academics probably, and finding my way, finding out what I wanted to do. Obviously, I studied history the whole time. And
what was the most difficult class for you? So, I did history too, but it was like Middle Ages was difficult for me, and now priest.
I took a history of Africa class.
Okay. How was that?
I loved it. It was very difficult because I had no context. You don't really learn about that in high school. At least I didn't. So that was challenging, but I loved it. And
what was the most interesting thing about the African history?
Just learning about all the different cultures there. We learned about Catholicism in Africa, which I just thought was very eye-opening.
Increasing now. A lot of people moving to the Catholic Church.
Yeah. So that was fun, but challenging. I remember we had to take a test and label all of the countries in Africa on a map, and that was very.
Stop.
I had to study hard for that one. But I mean, going to a Catholic college, I think definitely helped. I think maybe I expected it to solve all the problems, but it definitely helped. Just having that firm foundation. And having everybody around you sort of recognize that, even if everybody wasn't Catholic themselves. I think that definitely helped.
Yeah. I think I told you before this afternoon, something happened in Siena last Thursday. I was there in the library. I didn't tell you this. And, I was doing my personal research. I was sitting there. 3 people approached me to talk. 2 of them about confession. And one, she's not Catholic, and just to talk. I was raised, I was like a priest there doing things, and I was amazed, like, the university, the library is providing an opportunity to experience the mercy of God, and that was amazing. At the end of the college, your senior year. So, I know in America you have all these names for different areas, but at the very end, how do you see your life, speaking about faith-wise, at the end of your time at Siena? At the very end, how was your relation with Jesus Christ? How it was?
So for me, I graduated in 2021, so we had just gone through the pandemic in 2020. In 2021, things were still not quite what they are now, luckily. Like now everything is back to normal.
How they did during the COVID, like online classes and...
Oh, I took tax accounting in a party tent on the quad. Yeah. And then if I wasn't an RA, I probably wouldn't have been on campus my senior year because almost all of my classes were like remote, but that was one memory that I remember taking that class, and we were in the middle of taking a test, and the professor, she's a sweetheart, all of a sudden she like jumps up out of her chair and screeches because a squirrel had just ran across her foot. And it's like, oh, like this could only happen in a pandemic time like this. And it's just funny. But for me at that point, my senior year, like COVID was an interesting time for me to, I think, slow down and reflect more so on my faith. And I felt like my junior year, which is my 3rd year, I had gotten more connected through people, but then the pandemic allowed for me to slow down and really get engaged with my faith, for me, that was listening to podcasts and listening to different things on like YouTube or Spotify and like different meditations. It's like I had this time to put the space for my faith. And whereas like if I was in college, it's like you can easily get caught up in the hustle bustle of everything going on. And so going into like transitioning out of Siena, like my faith was important to me and I felt that. And so I wanted to make sure that I found a place to that like next place. And I was like, okay, like I know I can go. I had gotten a job here in the capital region. And so I was like, okay, like I need to set up my life in a way. And so I church top for a few parishes. I lived in Latham for about 3 years, and then I actually just moved to Cohoes. And so I'm like, I know I can always go back to Siena because Siena's home. But I'm like, Siena is college, and it's like, I want to take that step as an adult and get committed in like a community and rooted. And so I went to maybe 2 different parishes, and then I came to St. Pius, and I just had this feeling my first mass. And I don't remember if it was Father Russ or Father Walsh, but I was just like, wow, like look at the community here. Like, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm the youngest person here. Like this is awesome, which is not always the case at some parishes. If I walked in, they'll look at me like, what are you doing here? Like, are you at the right place? And it's like, but here at St. Pius, it's like, no, like we have a community here for young adults and it's ever growing. And Kirsty can speak more about that with all the great work that she's doing.
Yep.
And so I came in July of 21 and I haven't left. Here we are.
That's awesome. Crazy.
I graduated a year before Emily, so 2020.
Okay.
That's when the world completely shut down. So I remember I was actually on a class trip in March to New Mexico. We were studying the Catholic missions there. So March 2020, I was in New Mexico. We were supposed to leave for spring break the week after that. We fly home, everything shuts down. And I never went back to school since. We finished out the year virtually at home.
How was the graduation? Like virtually as well?
I didn't have one. I think eventually they did have one virtually, but by that point it was 2 years later. So I said, for me and my faith, I think it was just a huge exercise in trust and a good reminder that I'm not in control of any of this. And that was a positive experience for me because like I was so worried about, okay, what am I going to do next? And I just realized none of it's in my control. God's in control. This is a time to kind of reflect. Nobody's doing anything. I was at home for a while. And I kind of just got grounded, figured out what I wanted to do, what God wanted me to do. After COVID, I moved up here. I kind of bounced between churches. I wasn't really sure where my place was. I met my husband in college, so I was up closer to him up here. And then last year I found St. Pius, and it feels like home, just like Emily said. There's so much going on here. I met so many amazing friends, amazing people. My husband got confirmed here a couple months ago.
Go, Andrew. Snaps.
Andrew.
So, yeah, everything kind of led to where I'm meant to be, I believe. But it was a crazy ride since 2020.
Yeah. COVID-19, difficult time. How'd you did during the pandemic to keep your faith in Jesus Christ the Lord? How'd you did? Did you did something different?
I think for me, it was just reading more scripture. Like you would hear it in mass, but taking that time to actually read scripture was something that I don't think I did prior, other than maybe in a class reading scripture in like a religious class, but that's different than actually sitting down and choosing to pray and reflect.
Meditation is different than just,
and so for me during COVID, like reading and different books and engaging with my faith in that sense really grounded me.
Any recommendation for all of us?
Oh, I'm just trying to think.
No.
Can't go wrong with C.S. Lewis. I know.
The best. No, I love it.
I know.
Any recommendations? Any Catholic book that you recommend?
The Robe by Lloyd C. Douglas. I read it every Easter. It's a fictional story about what happened to the robe that Jesus was crucified with. I love that book. I think any Catholic fiction is so good at helping me kind of reimagine the faith in different ways. Even The Chosen. I just putting different characteristics to the saints really helps me kind of feel more personal with it. So Catholic fiction, I think, was
What is
huge for me.
What is your favorite season of The Chosen?
Oh gosh, I think season 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the
Super
Beatitudes
powerful.
episode.
Yeah.
My all-time favorite one. I love it. I just showed it to the kids in high school youth ministry. Yeah.
By the way, we watched The Chosen here at St. Pius together. Check the website for more info, or check the church, pew car to know more about the things we're doing. Favorite season about The Chosen? Did you watch The Chosen?
So I've seen some episodes in the first season, but I haven't. I'm not a huge TV person. I'm either in my books or watching sports most of the time. So that's usually where you can catch me.
Favorite scene of The Chosen? I know we're in season 5 right now, but I want to hear what is your favorite
Sermon on the
moment.
Mount. I think it was the beginning of season 3. I just love that scene. And the lead up to it when he was writing with Matthew. Yeah. And oh my gosh.
I love Matthew's personality in The Chosen, man. It's like this guy.
Yep.
What about you, any scene from The Chosen that
I can remember
you watch?
Nicodemus in one of the earlier episodes, and I was watching with my grandmother, and I can remember, I'm trying to remember which episode, it was the second or third, but it was just, the portrayal of it was really great.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it. We'll have to go over to your place and watch it, Kirsty.
I love Nicodemus because he's like a grandpa.
Yeah.
Like a grandpa thing when give you money, that moment when he left money to Jesus Christ and he sent the money. It's like a grandpa, like, have the money. Yeah, don't say anybody that I'm giving you this, but okay, being Catholic in college, you survive through all with your faith, heart, and if you have today a meeting or you sit down with somebody who's in the college having a hard time believing in Jesus Christ, what is your advice, suggestion, or somebody telling you like, it's hard for me to believe in Jesus Christ, whatever?
I'd say first off, just take it to prayer. Sometimes it's okay to have those prayers where like, I don't know what's going on. I may not fully understand everything going on, but I just pray for like an open heart to receive. Maybe I don't understand this, but I would say another important thing is if you have people that you're connected with. For me, community is a really important part of my life, and my friendships, I wouldn't be where I am without them. And so not being afraid to reach out to maybe people that you've seen in church, or maybe to a priest or to a pastor or a deacon. And so if you're struggling, don't be afraid to reach out if you're struggling in whatever capacity, if it's your faith or mental health or health in general. It's important to reach out to get the help that you need, if it's spiritual or physical or mental. Yep.
What about you, Chris? Any advice?
Yeah, I agree. Talking to my priest
Come to our
huge.
youth ministry.
Talking to my priest was huge during those times when I was questioning things. And something that I would advise that I didn't do was don't be afraid to join things and find that community, even if you think maybe you're not exactly alike or you might not fit in. I think finding people who share the same values that you do is huge, because then if you are questioning things, there's someone there to build you up, to kind of help you through it. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Last question. We always end this podcast asking this. If Jesus Christ shows up today here to you, what you will say to him? Who want to go first?
I'll let Kirsty go first. I got to think on this.
What would I say to him?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I would just say thank you for placing me here. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
I was going to say first off, I'm like, thank you, like, for everything.
Yeah. Like, thank you.
I will do the same. Be like, whoa.
Yeah.
You look like the chosen one. That will be good. Crazy. Any events in our youth ministry here at St.
For sure. So young adult ministry, we meet every Monday. May 5th, we're going to do a Cinco de Mayo event, so that'll be super fun, a potluck. We have...
Eating Mexican food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tacos.
Cinco de Mayo is very good.
Yep. And then we have Run Club every Wednesday, 7 a.m. Sometimes a little chilly, but we make it through.
At the Colony Crossings.
Thank you. South Pavilion. Young adult, that's pretty much it. And then for youth ministry, for my high schoolers, my middle schoolers, we meet every Tuesday, first and third Tuesday for high school, second and fourth for middle school, 6:30 to 8. We have a lot of fun. And that's the best. That's definitely the best time if you're questioning your faith to get your kids here, to have fun with other kids who believe the same thing. We answer questions. We go through all sorts of different topics about your faith. So yeah, that's what's going on in my neck of the woods.
This is my moment to shout out Kirsty for all the hard work that she's done this past year. This is her first year here, and she's launched so many great programs for both the youth and young adult ministry here.
It is a blessing for us to have you here, Chrissy, and you are doing wonderful, and you will see more of Crazy. Now I'm thinking to have Crazy for our school videos as well. There will be a lot of social media here. Last question: where do you sit when you come to St. Pius?
I generally sit in the same roughly spot. So if you're in the long part of the main section,
that's the center.
The center, and I'm always on the left side of the center, and I'm probably about a fourth to like a third of the way back. I'm not in the back, but I'm not right up in the front either, because I'm pretty tall, so I feel bad. I don't want to block anybody. So I'm like, okay, I can stand a little bit back, but I usually always sit around the same section. And that was another fun thing. Like when I first joined, like there's a little group of people that they're a little bit older, but they like welcome me. They're like, oh, like how are you? Like, and they try to get to know me, and I'm like, wow, like this is really neat. Like, because I go by myself, and so now it's like neat. And they'll always wave at me like when I walk back from like communion. It's like, oh, like
cool.
Yeah.
Chrissy, I know you're all in the atrium, always reaching out people. But when you come to Mass here, where do you sit?
I'm always on the chapel side. I used to sit in the back row, the very, very last row. But since confirmation, where we were placed, we were right in the front, and I just loved it because I was able to see everything. So that's my new spot, right in the front.
That's very nice. Do you want to share your social media in case that somebody wants to reach you out for any questions or whatever?
Sure. My Instagram is Emily M. Lombard. It might have 22, but I think it's just Emily M. Lombard right now.
Perfect.
One of those. If not, reach out to Kirsty via email, and she can get you that information for you. Yeah, I would say Instagram is probably my best social media.
Yeah, perfect.
Best and worst, but
perfect. Chrissy?
I don't have a personal Instagram, but young adults, St. Pius X Loudonville, YAM. I know it's kind of long, but we're there on Instagram. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Yeah. Otherwise, my email, ym@stpiusxloudonville.org.
And she's here, or call the office and you'll find a way to reach out to us. Thank you so, buddy. It is possible to keep your Catholic faith in college, especially because it's always questioned like, oh yeah, when the younger people, they move to the college, they lost their faith. No, it is possible to keep faith through all the college because we know Jesus Christ is always doing miracles in our lives. God bless you all. Continue listening and watching this podcast. Thank you, Crazy. Thank you, Emily. And, we'll have another very interesting topics in the future. We will have a series about stress in the future. But I will mention more of that. And God bless you all. And, remember, this is not about perfection. This is about keep trying to be close to Jesus Christ the Lord. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. And I will see you during the weekends here at St. Pius X. Bye-bye.